welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about my flight attendant life. Many people ask me wherever I go, I don't go announcing it to everyone what I do for my full daytime job, but I was in Ulta Beauty the other day and talking to someone at the Clinique counter, and we were talking about beauty and cosmetics. And then she asked me what I did, and then I told her, and she got all excited. She goes, "Oh, I always wanted to be a flight attendant when I was younger, and when did you start, and what is it like?" And I get questions all the time, so I thought I would just kind of go over the my job a little bit and the fun parts, the parts that aren't so fun, how it's changed over the years, and to let you know that airlines are hiring right now. So for anybody who's wanted to do this their whole life, my dad worked for United Airlines, and I got offered to go to training back when I was 25. I did an interview with Continental Airlines, but decided at the last minute I wasn't going to take the job. So I never reapplied again, but I always thought about it. And I think one of the reasons I didn't do it was because I was thinking about, my dad was talking to me about how he wanted me to finish college, and if I didn't have college education, then if I didn't like the job, I would have more opportunities. So it kind of was in the back of my mind that I always maybe wanted to do it. And I love to travel, and my dad working for the airlines took us all over the world when we were younger. But I didn't become a flight attendant till I was 41, 42, and I'm 54 now. So it's been a really fun, long journey, and it's an interesting job. And I love the airline that I work for. It's an amazing company, and so I would really be more inclined to tell you, if this is something you've always wanted to do and the opportunity is there right now. United is hiring, American is hiring, Delta, I don't know, they may be hiring. Everyone's hiring right now because the airline industry is booming and things are good. In a post 9/11 world, I mean, it's just everything. Airlines, every flight is full. People it's cheaper to fly. People don't work in their offices so much. They have entrepreneurial jobs like on YouTube and places like that. So everybody's available to fly. So it's just, the airline industry is really booming right now. We're getting a lot of new airplanes. The routes are being expanded, and they need good crew members. Now, before you go and apply, there are certain things that you need to know about what it's like being a flight attendant. The first thing I can tell you is that out of every 60,000 applicants that apply, they take about 100 to 500 people, depending on how desperate they are for flight attendants and what they're willing to overlook. But I will tell you, it's a rigorous interview process. And if you make it through to the end, before you even get to training, then congratulations, because you're the cream of the crop. This is not like an interview where you just go in and sit at a desk and talk to them about your credentials. This is like you show up for the interview, and from the moment you walk through that door, it's an all-day process. Before they even invite you back for the second interview, they're looking at everything: how you're dressed, how your makeup is, what you look like, how you interact with other people. And then throughout the day, they have all these activities that, unbeknownst to you, they're really testing you to see that if you really have what it takes, because being a flight attendant is like no other job in the world. I mean, we're a part of the flight attendants. You become a part of the Air and Space. You get a little card that says from the FAA, it's an FAA certification, and you're part of the Air and Space program in the government. I can't remember the name of what we're a part of, but it's a serious job, and it can be really fun, but it can be very stressful. And once you get the interview, and once you pass the test, the first part of the day, by the end of the day or the next day, usually it's at the end of the day, sometimes it's a 2-day process. For me, it was a 1-day process. You go through, after you do the morning exercises, as they are like going through, they're telling you a little bit about the company and they're watching you through these activities. The second half is more serious one-on-one interviews, and you go down, you start with a one-on-one interview with one person, and then if you pass that test, they send you to another one-on-one interview with someone else, and then finally you get to the head honchos and you finally have one last interview with them. And if they like you, then before you leave that day, you'll get an invitation to flight attendant training. So congratulations, you've made it through a very difficult day. You're feeling so elated because you know people are going home, and you do, and you'll see, you kind of can pick them out in a crowd. But here's another thing though, if you apply and you don't get it the first time, do not worry. Try again 6 months later, either with that same airline or another airline, because it depends on who your interviewers are. Sometimes that makes a difference, but really they're looking for certain criteria, and honestly you wouldn't be happy with the job if you didn't have some of that criteria anyway, because it's not always easy. Now once you make it past the first and second part of the day, then you go into the last part where you interview with all the head honchos, and then they ask you some really tough questions, like if Johnny, your son, was at a baseball game, and would you mind missing his game because you've got to fly? And you're like, you have to say yes if you want the job. You have to have a really good support system in place if you have children. My son was about 14, 11, 12. Yeah, he was probably about 12. But I had an excellent support system in place that allowed me to fly, because here's the caveat. Once you go to training and you get hired, then you're going to be on reserve, which means you're going to be on 24-hour call a select amount of days of the month, and that makes it really hard if you have small children. And I had a couple girls in my class with small kids, and they ended up not staying, even though they went through the grueling training process. And here's what I'm going to tell you. The reason you need to know this is because the training process is no joke. It's 5 weeks. You're away from home for 5 weeks. You're living in a dorm with one other person. And that's hard to do when you're a grown woman or in your 40s, to be living with somebody else for a month that you don't even know. But they're preparing you for the lifestyle that you're going to be leading. So you get to training, and I can't go into the specifics because that's just of everything that you're going to learn, because that's different for each individual airline. It's basically the same material, but how they prepare it and put it out to you is a little bit different, and it is kind of secretive, and there's a lot of security issues. So I won't go into everything that you learn, but I will tell you that it's intensive. You go to class 6 days a week. You're studying 7 days a week. You don't have a lot of downtime. It's nerve-wracking. You're going to be pushed to the limits, and you come out of there. It's like going to boot camp. You go in one way and you come out another way, but you feel extremely confident, and it does a lot for your, it's just an amazing, amazing experience. You not only learn a lot, because you have to learn information about all the different aircraft on top of safety issues and customer service issues, and so it's a heavy duty, it's like cramming like two semesters of college in 5 weeks. And you do lose people. It's kind of like, I hate to say the show The Apprentice, but that's the one that comes to mind, that if you, throughout the training process, you see people drop off, and you go look at your test scores, and and only the fittest survive. So hopefully you have a nice group of people that end up making it all the way through training, and then you're on your way. And so now you're going to be on reserve. And reserve is different for all airlines. Some airlines have a straight reserve for 5 years and then goes into rotating. Others have a straight reserve system where you're just on reserve until you're senior enough to hold a line. For example, in my airline, flight attendants in some bases have been on straight reserve for 13 years, 14, 15. And then we also have a group that are on rotating reserve because we had 2 airlines that merged together. So reserve is not fun. You're on 24-hour call. You do get a lot of days off. You actually get less days off as a reserve than you do as a line holder. Because when you're a line holder, what you're doing is when you bid for your line every month, you're bidding for a series of days off with trips in between. And the reason the job is so flexible is once you get awarded your days off with your trips in between, and the more senior you are, the better trips and the more days off you can hold. You go in after a couple days after everybody gets their award and you do a trade. You trade with the trips, you trade with each other and with the trips that are in open time. So the company gives out all the lines and there's some leftover trips, so they put them in this big pool, and then at a certain time it's like the stock market. The bell goes off and everybody runs in there and they try to trade and get all the days off that they want, and they can trade and get all the trips that they want, and then when the bell goes off, stop, everybody has to wait until the next day to do it again. And this goes on for about a week, where people can go in and trade with the open time pool. So if I have a trip and somebody picks it up, that frees me up, and then I can go pick up somebody's trip from advertisement. So at the end of the day, if the closing bell strikes and you don't have all of the trips that you want or the days off that you want, then that's okay. You can go into advertisements, and if you have spaces on your line to fit more trips, you can pick up other people's trips. So when you're on reserve, instead of trading trips, you trade your days with the pool. So if you got 4 days off and you want 2 more, you can trade around. The only thing that would stop you would be if all the days get blocked up. Weekends usually get blocked up pretty fast. It makes sure, I'm telling you all this and it's probably making your head spin, but what it does is it allows you to have the most flexible job in the whole world. It's really flexible. If you're a mom and you have kids and your kids get sick, you can put your trips in advertisements to get rid of them, and you can post on Facebook, hey, my kids are sick, could someone please pick up my trip? If you're a senior flight attendant, right now in Chicago, I'm holding about 19 days off, sometimes 20. When I first started, I was holding 10 days off. You're always going to hold off more than a normal 9-to-5 job, and you're going to have the flexibility if you're not working every day, because they don't always call you when you're on reserve on the days that you work. But it's a very flexible job. And it's a very interesting lifestyle. And as much as it could be a lonely job too, because you're working with strangers, so you get to know people in your base, but you basically work with people you don't know or are not good friends with every day. You're working with the public, which seems like that would be a high contact job, but it's really not, because people are coming in and out of your day all day long, and you don't have the bonding with them that you might have back in the 60s and 70s when air travel was relatively new. It's just a whole different world. It's kind of like you're, dealing with lots of people, and you do make wonderful, wonderful connections with some people sometimes. I definitely do. I've met some of the loveliest people, but all in all, you're away from home most days, unless you're a mom and you want to do turns, which means that you leave, say, Chicago, you go and come back at the end of the day. And unless there's bad weather or something, usually you're home at the end of the day. And that's really nice for moms. That's why it's a great job for mothers, except if you're on reserve. And it's just, and you get to travel, and you travel for free on your downtime, and you get to travel with your job, and you could pick up fun layovers. But you do, I just want to reiterate though, you do give up a little bit of your social life because you're gone a lot. So for example, I moved to Chicago 6 years ago, and I don't have a huge amount of friends here because I'm coming and going all the time. Now, if I worked say I was a nurse and I worked at the hospital with the same people all the time, over time, I would build relationships with those people, and I would make friends, and I would be able to, cultivate different relationships than you do in the airline industry world. It's a little bit different, but you have a lot of laughs. If you're bored at your job, you'll never be bored being a flight attendant. I have been there. I'll be going into my 11th year next April, so I'm in my 10th year now, and I am never, ever bored, ever. Every day is different. You're going to go to work, and even if you did the same trip, say I went to Los Angeles and back every day, you never know what the weather conditions are like, what the airplane's going to do, what the passengers are going to be like, who you're going to be working with. It's a job that you're never bored. But one of the downsides is it's also very tiring as you get older, especially, but you get jet lag. Your days, you could have it blocked out that you're going to be working maybe a 10-hour day, and it ends up being a 20-hour day because There are rules and regulations on how much a flight attendant can work in a day, and I'll get into that another time. But basically, your days get extended, and sometimes you're waiting for hours in airports, you're sleep deprived. You could be on a layover and have a 3 a.m. check-in, and you can't go to sleep at 5 o'clock, so you work the next day and you're tired. And you just, and it's physical. Those bar carts that we push up and down the aisle, they weigh 240 pounds when we stock them to go out into the aisle. So every day I'm pushing 250 pounds with my partner up the aisle. You know, there's turbulence. You know, I've had air travel is really, really safe, but you know, you have bad turbulence or something happens, or you know, it's like some days, if something happens on the airplane where there's turbulence, sometimes I think, oh my gosh, how many other people go to work, and like sometimes you feel like you're taking your life into your hands, in the sense that, you know, you could have something happen that like feels scary, even though maybe it's not, like nothing really bad is going to happen. But some days when we have bad turbulence, you'll be like, oh my gosh, how many people have to deal with this at their regular jobs? You know, you're flying in an airplane. On a positive note, once you break through the clouds on a rainy day, it's always sunny up in the air. So the sun comes out every day for me, but you're also in a tube in the sky and you're not breathing fresh air. And, you know, sometimes you're either in a plane or inside an airport terminal. And that's why it's so important that airports have big, bright windows, because then at least we feel like we're getting outside a little bit, even if we don't. So it's an adventure every day, and most flight attendants have a love-hate relationship with their job. We love the perks, we love the medical, but we love the amazing benefits our company gives us, medical, and we have we get good salaries. You know, we just got a big raise. All the airlines now finally are paying us. I mean, I don't think it's ever enough, but because we do go through a lot, but you know, the money is pretty good. And here's another reason the money has to be good, because you're not working a 9-to-5 job. So, for example, they have to pay you enough that if you only work if you only work 50 or 60 or 70 hours a month, you can make enough to support yourself, because we can't work the way normal people work. If you worked a 9-to-5 job as a flight attendant and put in 200 hours a month, you'd be so exhausted you wouldn't be able to function, and you'd have like zero social life and probably no relationships. So although we're allowed to fly as much as we want, most flight attendants don't fly more than 80 to 100 hours a month. There are a few that go over that, but that's not the norm. So it's an interesting job. I hope this was fascinating for you and that you got something from it. Like I said, if you're interested in becoming a flight attendant, there was one girl in my class who got hired in her 50s. It happens. You know, they're hiring a lot of really young people right now. If you have any daughters or nieces who want to get hired by the airlines, now is a great time. It's a wonderful career. The company's very good to you, and you have a lot of perks, more than any other job. As far as your benefits for travel and health and 401k, and you know, I really love my company. And so if you know someone, or if you want to just all of a sudden relive a childhood dream and apply, I would say go for it, because if you have the right personality and you're healthy and you're in pretty good shape, age is not going to matter. Our oldest flight attendant on the I used to work for Continental, and then we merged with United, where my dad worked. But the oldest flight attendant that we have working is 79, I think, 78 or 79. She flies to Beijing, China all the time, and she looks fabulous. She really does. She's just an incredible flight attendant. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope this was interesting, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Fly safe, and I'll see you soon. Thanks. Thanks so much for watching. Click the subscribe button or the bell and get notified whenever I upload a new video. Thank you. You're awesome.